Hey there guys, Portalmaster here, and welcome back to another one of my Portalmaster Ranks series. In today's video, we are going to be ranking the Lightcore Skylanders, of which there are 24. So technically, we're going to be including the Giants in this just because they have Lightcore elements, and when I ranked the Giants in my Giants ranking video, I did not really take into consideration their Lightcore elements at all. So all things considered, we're going to say there are 24 Lightcore Skylanders, the 8 from Skylanders Giants, the 8 from Skylanders Swap Force, and then the 8 Giants as well from Giants. So without further ado, let's jump in and let's start at number 24. So we're going off of Lightcore element here for number 24, and we're going off Lightcore element for all of them before we go any further in this. And despite the fact that Drobot is one of my favorite Skylanders of all time, let's be real, y'all. Lightcore Drobot is the biggest disappointment of the Lightcore family. He only has that single little spot on his back that lights up, and beyond that, he basically has nothing. It's one of the dimmest Lightcores, and straight up, it is the most disappointing of all of the Lightcores that were released. And the sad part is, he is one of the first ones that came out, and he's part of why I think people were so, swayed away from Lightcore characters. This is just an awful example of a Lightcore character. Coming in at number 23, we have Hothead. Hothead is one of those Skylanders that if they had just done his Lightcore right, it would have been so much better. If his hands lit up, he'd be like 8 to 10 places higher on this list, but it's just his head, and the headlight is just not that cool looking. It's really lame, and all in all, definitely the lamest, looking toy on the Portal as far as Giants are concerned, solely because his head is the only thing that lights up, and it's just incredibly disappointing. I really wish they'd done more. Coming in at number 22, we have one of the other early Lightcore characters, Lightcore Chill. While Lightcore Chill is not as bad as her legendary Lightcore counterpart that had a darker plastic and thus an even worse Lightcore element, Lightcore Chill is just not it. And as a result, that's why she ranks so low. I've really just never been impressed with her. All it is light coming up through the bottom of her spear, and it doesn't even reach the top. All in all, a complete disappointment. Here we have number 21, which is Lightcore Countdown, the first of the Swap Force Lightcores. So, Lightcore Countdown is really interesting, and I rank him higher than Hothead just because he only has one thing that looks like it even could be Lightcore. But that being said, he could have been so much better. They could have made his entire face light up, and that's honestly what they should have done. Or like they did with the Traptanium crystals, or sorry, not the Traptanium crystals, the Creation crystals in Imaginators, they could have had his whole, head like blink like a bomb going off. All in all, a huge missed opportunity with Countdown, and while he does look good, it is, again, a missed opportunity with this figure. Moving to number 20, we have one of the most breakable Skylanders of all time, Lightcore Hex. The only thing that lights up is the bottom of her dress, and while it does look eerie and creepy and, all that, it really just is not a very cool Lightcore element. It could have been done a lot better, in my opinion. They could have, had her skulls, glow. They could have had a bone wall glow. Again, for me, it's the missed opportunity with Hex. They could have done so much better, and ultimately, the light is not very bright, and that docks points for me as well. So that's why she's only number 20. And now, number 19, Bumbleblast. Bumbleblast, again, missed opportunity. The only thing that lights up is the very tip of his weapon, and while it is a unique and cool-looking Lightcore that with plenty of brightness, it's too disappointing, it's too small of an area that lights up, and ultimately it doesn't fit with what it could have been. He could have had the honey in his mouth glow, he could have had his whole weapon glow. Overall, pretty much a disappointment. We're moving more into the passing grade territory with the Lightcores, and that's why the next one on the list is Swarm. Swarm is not bad, and as a matter of fact, he actually has 2 places on him that light up. He has his eyes, and he has his right stinger, but his bottom left stinger does not light up, and while I don't think it's necessary for it to light up, ultimately it's just one of those things that you're like, they really could have done it, and they really didn't do it, and ultimately that's why he ends up where he does, the second lowest of the Giants, just because of that left stinger not lighting up. Coming in at number 17, we have Lightcore Warnado. While Lightcore Warnado is kind of anticlimactic in terms of like the actual lighting up, and they could have made his tornado light up, he gets bonus points for me, because when this character was first revealed, I was like, surely this is a mistake. Surely Warnado is a Series 2 character, and not a Lightcore. I was like, surely Whirlwind is the Lightcore. This is a mistake. This is not a Lightcore character. but his shell lights up when you put him on the portal. And I think that's so cool. He doesn't look like he's going to be Lightcore, and then he is. Kind of like Eyebrow, but Eyebrow, at least it's clear, where it's going to be a Lightcore. When you look at Warnado, you're like, where's this thing going to light up? And then it does, and that's why he ranks as high as he does for me. If not for the whole, surprise factor, he'd probably rank a lot lower, to be honest. Number 16, we have Smolderdash. This is basically 1/3 of the way up the list, so we are into like the top, 2/3 section. So Smolderdash ranks as low as she does, only because of her pose. This pose should have been her regular pose, and her actual Series 1 pose should have been the Lightcore one. Her Fire Whip is completely lacking. It misses the whole point of the actual Skylander. You look at this character and you're like, wow, this looks so lame. What does she do? She just T-poses. That's literally it. And even when you put her on the portal, her Lightcore, is just the back of her head, and I think it's anticlimactic. It's not that they did a bad job with Smolderdash. Again, they could have done so much better, and with what they did have, they didn't do much. It's a very, very dim looking thing. Nonetheless, it is still a cool effect and is, in my opinion, still pretty cool, but not as good as it could have been. Coming in at number 15 is Lightcore Grim Creeper. Lightcore Grim Creeper is really cool, but was way too dim. Ultimately, that's why he is as low as he is. He's actually got a really cool Lightcore element. I mean, he's basically a ghost in a possessed suit of armor, and he really pulls that effect off. Like, it really looks like he is, a ghost in a piece of armor. It really captures that, but ultimately, being so dim, it's just not good, and it's worsened if you go to Legendary Lightcore Grim Creeper. The Legendary Lightcores were kind of a mistake, and Grim Creeper is no exception. Number 14, Lightcore Whamshell. Lightcore Whamshell is probably one of the better core characters in terms of brightness. He is one of the brightest Lightcore characters. That's why he ranks as high as he does. Ultimately, he's got a really cool pose as well, and while I think they probably could have done more, they could have, had him using a starfish or something along those lines, or they could have, used the electric, arc coming out of his mace. I think they did a good job, and the brightness of the Lightcore element is what keeps him so high for me. So that's why he is number 14. Coming in at number 13, proving that you don't necessarily need a bright, all-encompassing Lightcore effect for me to, rank it high. Number 13 is Starstrike. Starstrike has one of the most subtle Lightcore elements of all the Skylanders and pulls it off incredibly well. It's just her eyes. Her striking eyes beaming out of her hood really captures the character as a whole, because you never see her face. You only ever see her eyes, and ultimately, I really, really, really think that the Lightcore of this captures the essence of the character. Sure, you could have had her fans glow, sure you could have had her batting around one of her light orbs, but just having her striking eyes glow in the dark is what makes her so cool. I think this was a great Lightcore. We've crossed the halfway mark, and we are at number 12, which is Thumpback. Thumpback, my lights have faded on my Thumpback, it seems, but when I originally got Thumpback, he had one of the brightest lights of all the Giants, and I really think that he looked menacing. I just threw it on the ground, but he looked menacing when he used his Lightcore elements. It felt like he was coming out of the briny seas with barnacles shimmering off of him as he arose, throwing his anchor at you and belly flopping at you and just, wreaking havoc. I think that it captured the essence of him, and I really, really liked his Lightcore element, even though it's now faded a little bit. Coming in at number 11, we have Ninjini. While Ninjini is not the brightest of the characters, she is one of the tallest Giants, and as a result of that, because her whole body lights up, she has one of the largest Lightcore elements of any of the Skylanders. Her whole body glows, her eyes glow as well, she looks fearsome. She's kind of like Warnado in that you don't necessarily expect her face to glow, you only expect her body and torso to glow, but when her face pops to life, you're like, wow, that is a formidable Skylander, that looks awesome sitting on the portal. They really did a great job pulling off the female character, the female giant, with Ninjini. Even though she's not my favorite to play with necessarily, I do think they did great. Maybe they could have, utilized her bottle, had her coming out of her bottle. The posing maybe could have been a little bit better for Ninjini, but ultimately I think they did a great job with her, and that is why she is number 11. It's time for number 10, Lightcore Eruptor. Lightcore Eruptor is an interesting one because while he does not have the most fearsome Lightcore element, while it's not, the most, terrifying or bright or awe-inspiring, it's iconic, and that's what lands him as high as it does for me. I do grant nostalgia a good bit, and with Lightcore Eruptor being one of the flagship characters, I think, for the Lightcore model, I really have to give it props. Plus, I do think that my Lightcore was a little bit brighter when I originally had him, when I first got him than how bright he is now. I do have to say, you know, a little less, you know, awesome now, but still, I think very iconic and a pretty good use of the Lightcore element. Now, if they could have had his whole body glow, there's a lot more they could have done with the Ruptor, but I do think still that he was a pretty well-presented Lightcore character. Coming in at number 9, we have Crusher. Crusher is formidable when you smack him down on the portal, with his studs on his armor glowing, his eyes glowing. It fits his character too, because when you think about it, one of his attacks is staring people down with his, I think it's Emerald Gaze, I forget the exact name of it, but it crystallizes and freezes enemies in their tracks with his glowing eyes. Just like with Starcast, the glowing eyes is so, you know, indicative of his character as a whole, and I think they did a great job of representing it on here. There's not much I would have changed with this guy. I mean, maybe you could have had his hammer glow, but honestly, that would have been too much. I think Crusher is the perfect example of how to do a Skylander as a Lightcore perfectly. There is nothing more I would have done with this guy than what this is represented as. You might be surprised that this one made it so high, but here is number 8, Lightcore Pop Fizz. Lightcore Pop Fizz is a strange one to me. It is one of the brightest Lightcore Skylanders of all time, and I think that's part of why he's as high as he was. I'm a sucker for the, you know, the lights being super bright, but I don't know. There's something like almost really cool about him holding the potion up proudly in hand and it just shimmering like a beacon. I know there's more they could have done. They could have had him glowing in beast mode. They could have had a whole sack of potions glowing, you know, potions oozing out from like his, you know, like on the base or something like that. There's so much more they could have done, but still, I actually do really like Lightcore Pop Fizz. And when I first got him, he was one of the ones I was most excited to get just because of how awesome and bright that potion was on the portal. This is another one you might be surprised at, but number 7 is Lightcore Jetvac. Lightcore Jetvac is another instance of doing, you know, a perfect job of making a Lightcore. This is how I would have made Lightcore Jetvac. I would have had, you know, his vacuum blaster glow on the back, but I think they were trying to avoid having the glow-in-the-dark elements on the back of the Skylander and want it to be in the front. And boy, did they do that. Lightcore Jetvac is one of the brightest characters, with his belt buckle shimmering and his vac blaster also, you know, shimmering in the night with his lights. Very bright, very cool, and I like his pose better than the original Jetvac. It is very fearsome. The ultimate mistake they made with making Lightcore Jetvac is also making Jetvac a starter pack character, and I feel like this didn't sell a ton of copies as a result because people already had a Jetvac. Number 6 is Bouncer. Bouncer is one of the coolest Lightcores of all time. His entire body glows just like Ninjini, and it's almost a better version of Ninjini. His eyes also glow a striking color too. The only thing that I could have done to this character as it stands is maybe made his fingertips glow, but honestly, he's perfect as is. You know, he could have had shoulder rockets too, but ultimately I think he's just fine. He's one of the brightest Lightcore characters. His whole figure lights up except his arms, and that's why he is number 6. Number 5 is Shroomboom. Shroomboom is one of the only dual-color Lightcore characters, where both his eye and his mushroom glow, but not the same color. His mushroom glows a deep green, and his eye glows a stark white. So basically, I think that really helps him shine, literally, metaphorically. When I first saw him, was like, what's glowing? Is it his slingshot? I can't figure out what's supposed to be glowing on Lightcore Shroomboom. But ultimately, when I got him, I realized, oh, this is one of the best Lightcore characters in Skylanders Giants. I really love this character, and there you go, Shroomboom. Number 4, Eyebrawl once again makes it very, very high in the list. Eyebrawl, you know, not the brightest character, not the most Lightcore character, but ultimately when you slam this guy down on the portal and his eye starts glowing, especially if you have the lights out and you just see the eerie like blue, you know, haze, the retina of his eye just glow in the dark. It's so cool. It really captures this character. There's nothing more I would have done for this character being a Lightcore one. You know, he could have had little baby eyes, you know, coming out like he normally could, you know, summoning the eyes, and maybe those could have glowed, but ultimately not much more. I mean, maybe a laser too, but I think that ultimately they made the right decision. Just having it be the eye that floats, that glows, I really like what they did with him, and it's an example of, again, how a minimalist Lightcore element can really spice up a figure. Number 3, Treerex. You had to know this one was up there. Treerex is, again, minimalist Lightcore. It's just his eyes glowing that hazy blue and his, little laser cannon glowing green. But the dual Lightcore color is why he's so high up there, as well as the fact that it's just perfect. What more would you have done with Treerex? What more could you have done to make him Lightcore? There are definitely Skylanders that are better suited to being Lightcores, but it feels like every time there's a good Skylander that should be Lightcore, it ultimately misses the mark. But Treerex with his dual colored lights really captures what a Lightcore is about, and they made a great decision including Treerex in the starter pack just because of the coloration of his Lightcore elements. Number two is Lightcore Flashwing. This is an example of a Skylander in the Lightcore form that does everything right. Flashwing should have been a Lightcore from the get-go. The fact she didn't get one in Giants was a huge mistake. She has a bright and very iconic and striking Lightcore element. But number three, there is nothing I would have done to this character that they didn't do. They had her wings flared out all high and mighty. They glow nice and bright. It is a perfect example of a Lightcore. This is the standard that they should all be held against. Flashwing is amazing. I don't understand why they didn't put her in the first game. They should have, eliminated one of the other Lightcore characters, kill Lightcore Drobot, and put in both her and Lightcore Prism Break, which is conveniently number one. Lightcore Prism Break is number one. He's the OG, the most iconic Lightcore character, and for good reason. Not only are his crystal laser beams super bright and super striking in the dark, but ultimately this is another example of exactly what a Lightcore Skylander should have been. While I ultimately think that Hyper Beam Prism Break and Series 2 Prism Break are cooler forms of Prism Break when not on the Portal, this Skylander when put on the Portal is one of the coolest looking ones. Two gigantic gemstones glowing green, and plus they fit the color that it is in game. Ultimately, Prism Break and Flashwing, it'd be unfair to try to pick. The only reason that I put Prism Break over is because he's the most iconic and because he is from the original Skylanders Giants, which is where we saw, the Lightcore elements being pioneered. So there you go. There is my top 24, ranking all the 24 Lightcore Skylanders. This was a really long video. I'm going to do what I can to try to shear it down to under 20 minutes. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to see what you guys think about the Lightcores. What is your ranking? Do you like the same ones I do? Do you think that I did like Drobot and Hothead dirty? Although if you do, I really want to know why you think that. So please do leave those down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Portalmaster. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks again for watching. I just wanted to take some time to thank my generous patrons on Patreon, including APYT Skylanders, Haley, Cinderclash, Adrian, OctoBoom, True Blue Dogemon, and HypnoticOcelot.